Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jing. I do sound design for theater, mainly with theatrical performances and sometimes with dance and sometimes with musicals as well. Uh, yeah, I've been doing sound design for in this line for about maybe 5 years, 4 years, professionally. And Mm, yeah, and there's Bani wanted me to talk about something about conceptual sound design, because in theatrical world there's a lot of technical things to address when you go about doing a production, and it stacks up a lot. And just talking about mics and everything, and even the systems, how you see all the systems, we have to build the entire system up, and then we think about what to play out of. So he wanted me to focus in on the content side of it and how we come up with the content and what are the approach and what are the considerations to um, making content for a piece of theatrical performance. So anyway, just to quickly talk about the sound design origins, because like sound design just didn't pop up anyhow. Because like even like in the Greek times when they're performing in the open air theaters, amphitheaters, then they have all the live music going on. Then you have the thunder sheets and everything, and you have then you have radio broadcasts, and when they do all the shakers and everything just to support sound. So the professional sound design thing grew out from that, and you start to think more about systems, then you start to think about, which I will talk about later, like how you want the audience to feel, what's, yeah, all the aims and everything. So it's sort of spiraled from very long ago, yeah. And how I like to see about sound design in theater is, yeah, so we think about the content, like basically like all the music, which I will also talk about later. Music, soundscapes and everything, my live bands inside, music and cast and everything. So that's the content side of it. And then we still think about the reinforcement sides, which is live actors, or let's say this guy is playing drums on stage or playing one little trash can on stage, which is what we are. I'm doing a show next week about, yeah, there's this trash can on stage that we have to reinforce. And then, after thinking about all these elements that you have in a piece, then you think about the amplification, because like I was saying earlier, when we move into a theater, there's not like it's not like a plug-in, like when I reach here, it's straight away plug in, then you get what your sound is and you get your maximum level. No. So it's for us, it's like, like for example, are you hearing me clearly right now? You're hearing it from the sides, right? So actually, if I want to let you guys hear more clearly, right, I'll have more monitors up here and pointing towards you guys instead. So that's like amplification, like we think about the system and everything, and how we will want. So like maybe, for example, if I'm if I'm speaking over a piece of music and everything will clash together if I'm just gonna send out on the same side of things, which for me, okay, one small little good example, which for me yesterday, how many of you guys heard the spoken text yesterday? Yeah. So for me, like I would have done the system differently, and like I want the spoken text to come out from here, and whatever we are doing is from here. Because like, you know, when you listen to music, actually right now there's a experience of music, there's a not error of experience of music. Like all of us listen to music mostly through our headphones. How many of you guys like listen to music at home with a hi-fi system, or have that habit of like, yeah, listening through a hi-fi system? Do you guys notice the placement of the vocals and the music? I mean all the musical instruments. Like there's this tendency of placing the vocals right in the middle, and all the instruments on the side. So if you go back and listen to some of the tracks again, right, you can really, it's called localization, like and imaging. So they image the person right in front of you and the band wide on the side. Yeah, which I will go on to another production. I mean, I'll talk about another production on that. So for us, we try to think about the experience that we want the audience to have. Then we will design on, we will keep that in consideration when we do our design, be it on content, be it on reinforcement, or be it even in the amplification itself. And even through that, right, like even before we think about that, right, we still have to think about the production itself, like whether we have the time for it. Like, okay, for example, yesterday, thinking about the production, it was, we only had like 1 day, and I couldn't change the setup even if I wanted to, like bring in more speakers or anything. And we found out yesterday about the surround system was, it's a house setting and everything. So like we think about all this, and we think about management, and we think about technical blah stuff. So just to scope down on how you can go about doing your stuff, which I can also, so after, okay, I'll talk about yesterday's performance a bit with relation to yesterday's performance. So I go through all these considerations, then I'll think about the concept side of it, which is how we are focusing in on the content and how we pick and choose, or how we create the stuff that we create. Okay. So wait, where am I? Yeah, effects on audience. Before we go on to this thing, I'm gonna go over to this side. This is one of the dance pieces that I did for Raw Moves. Yeah, the choreographer was an Italian choreographer from called Teresa Ranieri. Yeah, yeah. I'll just show you the clip. This is sort of what I do. Yeah, I don't know whether I have sound. Hold on. Wait. That piece was about it's called A Fleeting Moment, and the director, the choreographer wanted to talk about like how each moment of our lives is a fleeting one. Like so you experience life, whether it's a sad one, whether it's a happy one, it will pass fleetingly. Yeah. I'm a sound designer, so I don't do language one. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, so based on that idea and everything, which I'll go into deeper later, I started to play with sand, and this is the sand that I was messing around with, and I'll talk about why sand later. And just to introduce you guys what I do behind the scenes. Did you guys notice what was the sand movement just now, which is actually this part, like around. So yeah. So an introduction to what I do behind the scenes is this one. So this is my stage manager. She's helping me call my cues. And this is the one. This is where I'm operating off. Lights and sound. She's calling lights and sound. So the same scene. Fast forward a bit. Sound. Sound. Yeah, in that small little scene. Sound. yeah, basically within that more less than 1 minute frame, there's about 20 over cues to be called. Especially because I wanted the sand to keep flowing, and every time when they grab someone, then there's this drop of sand, like a harsher drop of sand. So that was that, and yeah, uh, that's just a little glimpse to how sound is operated, and because usually not usually, but like there are some people who do it like they'll create a score, and the choreographer will choreograph to it, and or will play the track and they'll go to it. Whereas in that situation, like I have no idea how they are gonna anticipate my sand drop, besides making it a bit cheesy and go towards with the rhythm, you know, the da 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 ta da 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 ta. I wanted to take that anticipation away, so I made it into a cueable sound. Yeah, cueable sound. Yeah. So back to the conceptual side of sound design. Sometimes we think, mainly the most important thing is the effect on the audience, or the effect on the audience, what we want for them. I mean, if you think about it, it's not the audience, it's also for us. It's like what we hear, and I mean, I myself as a designer, what I want to feel when I watch the play. Whether it's and these are just a few little effects that mental, psychological, philosophical, and physiological effect that I can think of because my vocab is limited. So psychological effect, usually like we want them to feel scared or feel happy or anything. Yesterday, okay, so with reference to yesterday, there was we jammed once during the afternoon, and they were saying that like we had feedback from the ensemble. And okay, what's the general mood that you guys find yesterday of the piece when all of us jammed together? Yeah, for those, yeah, the second half one. Like, is there any like random feedback, like whether, I mean, on a psychological sense, which is like, do you feel like it's a bit too creepy or too dark or too, yeah. But anyway, okay, never mind. I'll just go on and talk about the feedback that I got, cause when the ensemble jammed among themselves, they felt that the piece was more comical. They wanted to grab the amusing part of it and everything. Whereas when I watched it, I went on a very creepy level, because like knowing the story, and the story is like the seduction of Tang San Zhang, is it? Yeah, they seduce him, and it's all the creepy stuff lah. Like yeah, so I went on the creepy route, and after we jammed together, and then they gave me a feedback. It's like is it meant to be so dark? Because so then I was like, oh, my psychological and the effects that I want and the effect that you want is different, and yeah, it's just different sound directions that we were taking. So that was one interesting thing. And the philosophical one, okay, one philosophical reference that I can talk about is actually, which is the last video I showed, which was using sand, and talking about sand in that piece, and about time and about moments of our lives and everything, because I was trying to find an element that I can play with in reference to time. And then obviously sand is my, instead of using time ticking clocks and everything, or beeps and everything, I use sand as in with reference to the hourglass and everything. So there was that was my initial what do you call that? Direction, yeah. As in that was my intended philosophical effect that I wanted to have. And so throughout the whole play, there was a lot of sand movements, a lot of sand drops and everything, and sand grabbing and everything. And layered upon a score that I used strings instead, because I felt that like in strings you can make it you can make a note never end, yeah, and you can make it really short as well. So I went on the strings route. Oh, personally, I'm not musically trained, so I dabble around, yeah, dabble around. Physiological, there's this new, as sound design grows, as technology grows and everything, I mean, advances and everything, there's this new, not really new as well, new thing that what sound is trying to make people feel and everything. For example, in gaming, any avid gamers here, if you guys are aware, when you play games, right, there's this bass shaker thing that you install under your chair. So when something explodes, right, then you feel the tremor, yeah. So using that analogy, I mean, using that reference, people are trying to, I mean, theater sound designers are trying to bring that experiences into theater itself. So they started installing bass shakers, bass plates and everything, and they try to make a physiological effect on the audiences as well. Yeah, so that's that, and yeah. Okay, so when I go into designing a piece, I will try to find elements that I can play with instead of like going on to what I'm comfortable with, because like mainly I'm a guitar player. I play keyboard. I've learned drums. I've learned violin and some other weird instruments. But for me, it's like every show, every performance, every script has its own demand to it. So I'll always, so far, for every show right now, I've been changing the instruments, like musical instruments that I pick for the show itself. And so, okay, just briefly going through the elements that I can play with is the composition of music, sound effects, and ambient soundscape, sound arts, and which I'll go on to the last part, which is the theatrical silence. Music is what I call like all the musical elements, like whatever tonal music. I don't know how to further discuss this. Music, yeah, musical instruments, yeah. Then sound effects is like all those you hear like crows, birds, and door slamming. Yesterday there was a lot of effects, Foley's. They were doing all the sound effects for the piece yesterday. And the ambient side of things was, which is yesterday I played the wind stuff and fire, like general big textures that helps to build a space geographically or psychologically. Yeah, ambient. I mean, soundscape is the more ambiguous ones where you start to mess between what is ambient and what is music, because you actually sometimes use, one example would be this soundscape. Let's see. Oh, no, not this. Yeah, this is what I call soundscape. Yeah, very random. It's not really music, but yeah. Yeah, this is what I operate off for performances, because it allows you to cue which one you want to go first, which one you want to go last, and it allows you to go whichever level you want. So yeah. So let's say this is playing first, and I want this track to play in when the performer comes in, only when the performer comes in, and fade in because he takes like forever to walk on stage. So I'll fade in over like 14 seconds. Then as you go, then you'll slowly come in. Yeah. Because I discussed this with a couple of people. Like why do I prepare it this way versus scoring it out with the rehearsals? Because considering everything, production management, technical and everything, we want it to work. I mean, I want it to be more flexible, because if not, we'll be doing it in software form and like bouncing it and everything. Then, oh, it's wrong. Then I have to reshape it again and re-render it out. So yeah, so we have this software to help us in our workflow in theater setting. Yeah, so that's soundscape. And sound art and noise art is, for me, is even more ambiguous, because it messes around with a lot of like random elements. Like even this is the sand thing. For me, I consider it as sound art, because like it's just you have raw elements, like raw things, that organic stuff that you are messing around with, but it goes through a bit of process. So that's what, for me, at least personally, because in the end, categories are all by ourselves. I mean, like we categorize things by our own brain or whatever. So yeah, that for me is noise art. Yesterday, Zai was doing some really awesome sound art. I kept looking over, and yeah, then yeah, that's noise art. And yeah, then the last part is theatrical silence. So I wanted to do one experiment about theatrical silence, but I don't know whether I can achieve it here. So like let's try this. So I'm gonna do a quick plot about this. Is just a so. Oops, I think it's a 45. Bear with me for a while. this is theatrical silence. So it took me a while to boil that. But usually, so this is space performance silence. So when the actors they are going through a romantic scene at night at the lake and everything, they are talking like that. So yeah, so for me, there's this thing about, for me the element about theatrical silence is very intimate and it's very sensitive. So I will treasure it. I will only want to use it at a special time. So it's also understanding the theatrical silence that I have in the space. So like, pardon me, I was waiting for very long because I was trying to wait for a moment when the club music was quiet. So then I paused on when they were taking a break right now. Yeah, then don't know when the bass coming back again. Anyway, yeah, so it's also being sensitive to the space and yeah, so we consider a lot of the natural acoustics of the room and everything, and just to achieve something small like theatrical silence, because we can use the element in like the most intimate setting or like the most intense. So yeah, if I think about an intense scene, then I'll use theatrical silence in intense scene. That means the non-intense scene, I'll go very loud or very something like that. So it's just to have a contrast in your own design and everything. So the qualities, I think tone and space and imaging, I was talking about space and imaging earlier, about how we can localize things on stage, or like even here, I can make myself sound a bit further away and everything. So yeah, and textures, about how coarse it is. Just now, I don't know whether you guys was watching me when I listened to I was adjusting all the sounds just now. When I was playing the thunder sound, then for me that totally didn't hit the right texture that I wanted, so that sucked. Yeah, so yeah, so it's and even then, right, the directors or like the creators' vision of what sound can be or what the texture should be, it's so it will be totally different from how you envision it and everything. And that's when the long discussions will come in, and long, I mean like trial and error and everything. So one interesting thing that happened was I had to find a fart noise, and it went through 9 drafts. Yeah, 9 drafts of fart sounds. Yeah, just to find one fart. Yeah, and then when I found a few ones, then the director says like it's not wet enough. Then, then for me, then some are too wet and everything. Oh shit. Okay, I'll try to hurry. Okay. Where am I? Okay. So yeah. Okay, design approach. I will research into things, and like we think about geographical blah 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 blah. Necessary elements is like sometimes like the door slams, so you need to have that door sound effect. Emotional journey is for like the character. Sometimes I have a note for this. Hold on. The character journey yesterday. Emotional journey for the character. This is hard to explain. It's about whether the Lord of the Flies that I did the other time. Like it was losing Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Thank you, lead student. And so it's the loss of innocence. So the emotional journey, there's this quite clear emotional journey on each of the boys and everything, how they lose their innocence and how they want to be like, how they become savages, which yeah, and so that's one kind of emotional journey. Recurring themes, Lord of the Flies again, the fight for power and the thirst for power and everything, and how power is represented in the play itself. And in Lord of the Flies, I focus on the conch. So the conch became a recurring theme. The conch sound, the horns, that farting noise, not farting noise, it's a horn sound, yeah. So that was a recurring theme for me. And live elements there's this play that I did with live acoustic piano on stage, and they wanted the acoustic piano it was a house setting, live piano on stage, and the wife in the play she has this problem dealing with her own loneliness. So with that in mind, I took the live piano, I made it sound like on stage, But with control and everything, I made the piano slowly float out to the space as she becomes more and more lonely. So for me, it's when she becomes more lonely, we get into her world. So it's as if that we are playing the piano with her. Then, but when she zooms out of it, then it becomes just flat on stage when she's most, yeah, and lonely, yeah. And characterization and journey. Characterization is like yesterday. We had a lot of characterizations like the chains and the combs and everything. But there's the additional thing, which is the journey, how it starts off and how it ends. The fleeting moment, the sand thing, was actually characterizing the male guy, the only male dancer throughout the whole thing, and how he started off with his journey. So the start of the play, it started with one drop, single drops of sand, and then the sand took on its own journey. It went all over the place. Then, but at the end of it, I went back into what a single drops for me, and for me that is trying to make the character, like, no matter what things you go through and everything, a single second is still a single second, and yeah. Then main story thesis, antithesis. There's one show that I'm doing right now. It's about trauma recollection, and it's about and it's quite sensitive on sexual assault and everything. And so the main story thesis is trauma, and and it's a very personal piece and everything. So I actually suggested an antithesis is, why not our design go the other way, which is we make it very factual, make it very cold, and leave it, and that's for my sound direction, and leave the emotional parts to just alone the actor. And my basis on that was just because no matter in trauma and everything, as much as people try to say that they understand you, you are quite alone on this. Like, you will feel alone on this, yeah. So that was my antithesis. Then we bring it to the last part, which is the director's vision. So after saying all that about the trauma and everything, the director's vision didn't agree with mine. So actually, at the end of the day, the director's vision is the most important, and you can try as much to sell an idea to the director, but sometimes they just are not able to hear what you hear. And yeah, that's the most biggest obstacle that I find in doing sound for theater. I think I better wrap it up. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you.